You are listening to the Home Service Business Success Show. We have been accelerating the path of success for home service companies since 2011.
What does success look like to you? And success to me has to do with freedom.
But Kenny, it's not about the money.
As soon as you hear that, you know it's about the money, period.
We're going to downshift, and I'm going to throw this thing into a U-turn. We're going to go back around for a minute. This is my downshift. We just whipped to you. We're going to go back to something you just said.
I just get a little fired up, Chris. That's all. Hey, friends, welcome back. It's Kenny Chapman and Chris Crew, Home Service Business Success, episode number 5 today, brother.
Ooh, we're on Cinco already, man. Who knew that this was going to be what it was going to be when we started out? And I mean, if I'm just being real, I've been having a blast doing this, and it's been very invigorating as well. Just talking about topics that are relevant to service business owners and managers and leaders has been it's been good for me. And Kenny, you know my story. We've talked about it often as the ability to give back to the industry. I've got a little dream book, and you know, one of the things in my dream book that I've written down is I want to be able to give to this industry more than it gave to me.
Absolutely. And you get up and do it every day now. And, you know, here we are, episode 5, we're going to talk about top line intoxication. And that comes from a place of love because we, you know, granted, Chris and I run the Blue Collar Success Group. Well, I'm a co-founder and he runs the company today. And though we've been accelerating the path of success since 2011 for home service companies, Chris and I just wanted to bring our two perspectives. So 5 episodes in, just a reminder, we work with people every day in the trades, in the home service space, and we get to see things. And hopefully a ton of our clients are listening. And if you're not clients, we're not here strong-arming you to become clients. We just want to share and, to Chris's point, give back. This industry's been so good to us and it continues to be so. And one of the challenges we see is this, oh man, top line, if I could just get to, 5 million, if I could just get to 10 million, if I could just get to 100 million. Like when I first started, 5 was a big number. Now everybody kind of sets their sights on 100. And now that there's multiple $100 million company, well, now it's $250 million. And now, now there's private equity doing over $1 billion. And so it's like, it's really not about that, but we still kind of chase it. And we still have this intoxication with the top line. What's up with that, bro?
I'll speak to this from, my checkered past of a little bit of my experience. Top line revenue, whether it be daily, weekly, monthly, or annually, is just like the addict that's just looking for the next high. And the challenge is this high is not as good as the last high, so I want to get higher. Now let me shift gears and I'm going to back up. Man, that was great. That was a great revenue week. That was a great revenue month. We broke the record. How do we go higher? How do we get more? How do we drive more revenue? And it becomes this, and I'll say it for what it is. It's the dopamines that are released, and that's the intoxication feeling of how awesome it feels. And we celebrate, and everybody's high-fiving, and there's nothing wrong with it unless you get caught up in it. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about how only focusing on top line revenue growth and not looking at profitability and margins is super dangerous.
You said, I would be amiss not to share with the listeners a phenomenal book I read last year called Dopamine Nation. Anna Lemke is the author. And to Chris's point, she talks about that in all different ways, and it shows up in social media clicks. Like the world is set up around this dopamine now. And what I wanted to make sure you capture as a listener, or if you're watching us, is the fact that the next one isn't as good as the first one. So we all knew it. Like it was our personal income. If I could just make 30,000 a year, and some of you are going, damn, Kenny, you are old. Like for me, okay, how about if I could just make $7 an hour, I'll go all the way. Like, but the key is that there's always the next. And I remember, Tony Robbins talking about way back when he wrote Personal Power, or In Personal Power, back in 98, I think I listened to that program, and he thought he was the man because he had a $4 million house in Del Mar, California. I happen to live down the street in Encinitas now. And so he had this castle house, and he flew to Hawaii, and he met this guy that had a $4 million front door. And he went, oh, damn, I thought my house was pretty cool because it was worth $4 million, and this guy's front door is worth $4 million. And we have that where it's like, oh my gosh, as soon as I get there, and we neglect these things in the process. And, it's what we celebrate because we're chasing. And like you said, what we want to bring back to you today, ladies and gentlemen, is sometimes slow is smooth and smooth is fast. I got that from the Navy SEALs. And oftentimes we feel that as soon as I get X, then I'm going to fix Y. And I did that with my own personal health. I've done that with family relationships, with my relationship with Christy. As soon as I get a best-selling book, as soon as I get on this stage, I'll have more time, and we go, as soon as I'm at 5 million, Chris, then I'm going to get my gross margin. It'll come into line when I'm at 5 million. Well, I can't be double digit net. I'm only 3 million. How could I be double digit net at 3 million? You can't. And we keep on waiting. And the next thing you know, and we see it, you're 75 million and you're single digit with a 40% gross margin. And again, that might be great if you're HVAC only. I'm just saying that whatever the number is, top line doesn't always solve it, ladies and gentlemen.
We're going to downshift, and I'm going to throw this thing into a U-turn. We're going to go back around for a minute. This is my downshift. We're going to downshift for a minute. We just whipped to you. We're going to go back to something you just said. You were talking about being in the industry. I remember when I got into the industry, and this is not a walk down memory lane. I want to share with you why. I got into this industry at $6 an hour. That was where I started.
Yeah.
And then by the time I got to a lead position and making $15 an hour, I bought my first house. Let me say that. I bought my first house at $15 an hour, which means it wasn't a very nice house, but I had bought a house. And so the reason why I bring this up, Kenny, is because, the whole top line intoxication, I believe there's also an intoxication also around income.
Yes.
And so now it's, if I get this revenue, then I can make X. And so now and just to be very clear, there's nothing wrong with anything that we're talking about right now. But just like the addict, to get the next high, they're willing to destroy things to get to the next thing. Now let me bring that down to business owners. I'm willing to sacrifice margins and profit to get to the next revenue number.
Yeah.
Because then when I'm hanging out with people, it sounds cooler that I'm running a $30 million versus a $3 million business. And I would rather have a $3 million business. I'll never forget one of our clients, Joe. You've heard me tell this story before, and I'll tell it again because Joe was up in New Jersey, run an HVAC company, and Joe was about a $3 million company, somewhere around that size, if my memory serves me correct. And I seen so much in his business, Kenny. I'm like, oh my God, we could do this, you could do this, you could do that, and we could grow this business. I said this before, Joe, I think you're a $3 million business sitting in a pair of $10 million pants. I was like, let's just fill those babies out. Let's grow into them a little bit. And I'll never forget, we were on Zoom, Kenny. He looked dead at me and he said, Chris, I'm at 3 million at 20% net. I don't want $10 million problems.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that was a good perspective for me to hear because, the old concept of sales is vanity and profit is sanity. And so when we're looking at the business, top line intoxication takes place because now it's a reference point that everybody is willing to talk about and share. You know what I'd rather hear you start talking about next time you're sitting at a table and you're hearing people bragging about, themselves. It's going to be like, I don't know how to say this other than it's going to be very off color, but it's going to be like the fart in the elevator. Who did it? Right. It's like you smell, you start looking around, right? Like, it wasn't you, but somebody else did it and nobody else is, it's like next time you're sitting at a table and people are talking about revenue number and number of trucks, just ask the question, hey, just out of curiosity, what percentage of profit are you running at as well?
Yeah.
Because see, now you can put in perspective, oh, I'm 5%. Oh, I'm 6%. I'm 10, I'm 12, I'm 11. And now for me, because that's the true measure. Just for the record, a $30 million company at 10% net is still making good money. Let me be very clear. But the $30 million company at 5% net, that's a lot of work that went in to make that money. And you can make the same amount of money at a smaller company without the risk and the work, right?
Yes.
And I'm going to say this, growing a business is risky. The bigger it gets, the more targeted you can become for lawsuits and accidents and injuries. And heaven forbid, I got 62 service trucks running all over the state. And I mean, there's a lot that can go into that, right? So when you're only chasing revenue and you sacrifice certain things, and, we said sacrifice profits and margins, right? Tangible things.
And I think, the reminder here, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to continue to remind you through the show, is getting back to your plan. And, one of the things we do at Blue Collar is meet you where you are. And this isn't about you becoming one of our members. But the reason we do that is because Chris and I both have past lives where it was a kind of a more of a one size fits all. And you're supposed to do this in order to go grow for, whatever reason. And now it's like, to your point about Joe, where he knew who he was. He knew his operator DNA. Was it a limiting belief that he couldn't have been 10 million and still been 20%? Of course, that was a limiting belief. At least that's our perspective, because we've helped other clients do that. However, for him, he knew, and he ended up selling that business, and he executed all of his goals and dreams exactly on his terms. And I think that's where the key is, because there'll be times that, let's say, there's the revenue humps and there are the revenue jumps and there's the different things, and where as long as you are consciously working a plan and know, I'm going to sacrifice a little margin right now because I'm doing X, or I'm willing to give up a little bit of profitability right now because I'm going to go into this other market, or what. When you consciously know, rather than like, oh, what we see more often than not is, I'm going to go over here in this market because there's another 5 million over there and I go get that. But I'm not really paying attention to my gross margin. I'm not really paying attention to my overhead percentages, because to your point, it's like, oh, well, how I want to get in the elevator and go, well, how, what'd you do last year in sales? Oh, well, I did X. And even the profit number is one where you've got to get relationships enough with people. Why we hammer authenticity at Blue Collar, because, oh, well, I'm at 12%. Well, how much are the owners taking again? Like, what's that add back look like? Or, oh, I'm at 12%, but we don't pay ourselves anything because we have this other strategy. Well, then you're not at a true 12% if you don't have a fair market value executive compensation package. And so really getting to the truth of it, and getting to, why are we doing all that? Because we're comparing ourselves to other things, trying to feel okay. And what I want you to do is feel okay about your own walk and your own path and your own goals, and walking in your own two shoes in your own business, in your own career, in your own path, so you enjoy your family and you get to live the life that you want, because we live in the wealthiest country in the world, regardless of in the US, Canada, Australia, all great markets, all great places. I just get a little fired up, Chris. That's all.
It's just dopamine. That's all it is. It's the, it's the our brain, after it's had a taste of it once again. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I'm very clear about it. I don't hide behind it at all. A lot of times people laugh at me when I say things like, yeah, jumping out of airplanes sounds dumb for some, but I'm like, for me, it's just like super high adrenaline. It sounds weird. You know, I got a lot of ink on my body. It's adrenaline. And so maybe, yeah, that my drug of choice is adrenaline, and because of the way I feel from it. And so this validates, Kenny, something that you've always said. Everything that we do it for a feeling. And so the feeling that we get to be able to talk about our top line number is super important, because that, maybe it gets me an in with the cool kid club, because I've got into the 10 million, the 12, the 13, 30, whatever. It's like, what about the $500,000 listener right now? You're doing 500 grand a year, and you're just thinking to yourself, God, if I knew what it looked like to do 12, I'd be happy. Like, don't get caught up in that, right?
Yeah,
because
right.
If you're running a good business at 500,000 and you're 20% net, I mean, just do the math. It's not like you're not making money. The worst thing that can ever happen is be so focused on top line intoxication. I've seen this, by the way. Companies that focus so much, because we talked in the last episode, right? Sales will cover a multitude of sins in a business.
Yeah. No, it's necessary for sure.
But at some point, you got to pay the piper.
That's right.
And
Exactly.
Profit doesn't equal cash. And so while we see a lot of people get out and they can drive the hell out of revenue, but you wonder, like, whatever happened to that business? It went out because we said this as well. You got to be a sales and marketing organization that's in the people business that delivers the services of XYZ. But if that's all you are, you lose the ability to generate profit. And Kenny, don't even get it started. But I just, how do you believe, like, top line intoxication, that people sacrifice profits and margins? But have you ever seen it? People sacrifice culture.
Oh my God. It's incredible. And I'm one that said, I believe culture should be on the balance sheet. I believe it's one of the most important assets in the organization, because it weathers the storm far easier than so many other things in the business. And I want to tie back to something Chris said, that those of you that are running organizations with a leadership team, or those of you that will at some point, I want you to be super clear. It really hit me. Chris said he likes to jump out of airplanes, and he's got a lot of ink on his body. Well, Kenny waits on the ground for him to land when he jumps out of airplanes, because we've gone and you've jumped, and Christy and I were having coffee waiting for you guys to float down. And I spent 3 years in the military and it was in the first combat, or the first Gulf War, as a combat vet. I escaped without any ink on my body. You and I have very different certain ways about going about life, and our own adrenaline and our own energy. And yet you set the budget at Blue Collar, you and your executive team, and then I authorize it. But we're bringing those different things together. So if you're listening or watching us, remember, all of those have to come to congruency. Because if I'm in a place where I'm going, hey, I'm going to play it a little safe, but Chris's compensation and the team's compensation, and we're growing and we've got certain things are tied to growth, then I can't be the blocker of his future. No different can he be so driven about going, hey, we got to go. And as a primary investor in the organization, and I go, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. They've got to come together and line up. And what we've found is generally one of us wants to go maybe a little faster than the other one, but we've come really back in. And of course, then we've got our integrator and our ops director, and we have the people that come in to set budget. And the reason I bring up budget is because that's when top line will sneak in on you. When you go, well, we did, 5 million last year. if we could do 7 this year, we could be at 10-3. And then that would mean fill in the blank. It's a feeling, whatever it is, whatever you say it is. It's the car, it's the house, it's the location, it's the market, it's the private school for the kids. Whatever it is, it's a feeling, ladies and gentlemen. Be mindful of that. But you've got to get your team congruent.
But Kenny, it's not about the money. You ever heard that? It's not about the money.
As soon as you hear that, you know it's about the money, period.
Yeah, it's not about the money. Let's shift gears for a minute. I want to, because when I think about aggressive growth, my company, we were super aggressive at growing, and there were things that we sacrificed, to your point, knowingly. These are the things that we're going to sacrifice, and this is the plan to level things out. As the top line hits this number, then we're going to do this, and this is how we're going to fix it. And I'd say, don't go into it going, we hope that we're going to do this. No, this is what we're going to go do. And when this hits this number, this is what we will do. This is the plan. We set that plan in motion. So we were running, there were some months where, we're running 10 and 12%. I want to be running a 20% net company. We're running 10 and 12. But when we're actively putting new technicians on the road, there's a cost associated with that. I talk often about how we leveraged other people's money through leasing and wrapping things up in leases and consigning things and doing things very uniquely to have aggressive growth, but there were still hidden costs that were associated in doing that. So for our listeners and watchers consuming our content, I want you to now quantify what is the expense that I'm not thinking about in potential. Watch this. You ready? Pace, not race. First episode.
Yes.
Am I sacrificing my pace to get here? And so therefore I'm feeling exhausted and tired and drained and and so you fall out of love with the business. And now the goal is not really that important. And now it's just like, I'm at status quo and I'm just trying to maintain. And so now everything goes out the window with the plan. You can't let that happen.
Yes.
You've got to stay the course. You've got to stay the course here. And more importantly, shift when you get the wrong wind and the wind is telling you don't go this way, go this way. Sometimes you might need to listen to that a little bit in business.
Oh man. So intuition, and I'll share a question that I ask you often, which is, what do you know that you're pretending not to know? When it comes to blue collar, as Chris, as the president, with me as the CEO, I'll ask Chris that sometimes. And I don't have, when I first started asking you, I remember you were kind of like, well, what are you talking about? Like, and it's like, I'm not playing mind games. I ask myself that question a lot because I'm trying to get to my intuition. I'm trying to go, it doesn't really feel right to go do this or say that or teach that or be that, but I'm going to go do it because it's popular. I'm going to go do it because I'm, quote, supposed to. I'm going to go, you fill in the blank. And that's what happens with top line. And that's where, to your point, Chris, the exhaustion comes. And I have so much respect for people that are willing to honor their own truth. Now, do I believe in growth? Yes. Do I believe that growth is a necessary part of the business experience? Yes, because it's necessary part of the human experience. That being said, I could be flat on the top line for 3 years straight and still have massive growth because I'm shoring up, I'm doing more with less. We've countless blue collar companies that have come and joined the organization. And then it's like, oh my God, I make way more money with way less people now, but I'm at the same revenue, whatever that is. And I'll say this too. And obviously Chris and I, we get fired up about this stuff because quality of life is the reason that we do what we do, our own and our team and our clients. And in this case, you as our listeners, we want to improve the quality of your life. And so as private equity came into the coaching and training space, and it was buying up your businesses left and right as listeners. And guess what? They knew they needed training and coaching. So they started buying up, best practices groups and companies like the Blue Collar Success Group and this and that. And fortunately, we're playing a long game here. I have a 25-year vision that what are we now, Chris? 3 years into a 25-year vision. We're working a 10-year plan. We know who we are and what we want to do. And therefore, other people can go fast. They go at their own. We're running our own pace. I'm not looking to get exhausted, nor am I looking to exhaust anybody on my team or wear out clients for reasons that they don't want to go do. It's all about this methodology and, progress, not perfection. We've talked about that in previous episodes.
I told Tim Flynn at the end of 2019, I said, Tim, you got to grow this business like you plan on selling it. Whether you ever plan on selling it or not doesn't matter, because guess what you're going to do when you plan on selling it? You're going to systematize it so that it runs without you. You're going to put quality leadership in place so that you can disappear because it's more valuable. And you're going to drive the hell out of profit because it makes it more valuable. And I'm going to ask you just a quick question today. What would be wrong with systematizing your business, creating the very best processes to make sure that things are running smooth, add leadership into the business, and drive profit to the bottom line? And you don't sell. So what? Life gets amazing?
Yes.
Like, come on, man. Like,
we forget that, those of you that are owners, I believe you're an investor. I believe you're the number one. I don't care about business structure. We're not going to get into all that, but consider yourself a primary shareholder of the organization. And so everybody's talking about, private equity's come to town. All it is an ownership structure. Nothing's changed other than ownership. And so, to your point, when you decide who you want to be, and we see that, okay, I'm going to buy revenue. Well, that only works to a certain point, and it's beginning to shake out a little bit now in the space. And so we want you as the listener to decide, what does success look like to you? And success to me has to do with freedom. Money is a very important component to that for me. I want to have financial independence. I want to be, now that doesn't mean that I don't ever take another paycheck or I don't need blue collar to be profitable, but I live within my means and it affords me the opportunity to have some freedom in my life. So I'm not going to say money doesn't matter. Money is a component of freedom for me. But once that component's met, you realize that you can continue to drive it forward. And we see it where, okay, now it's the next car, it's the next, whatever it is, right? Fill in the blank. And I just built a house last year. So, I mean, I like nice stuff, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I didn't take a Mother Teresa vow of poverty. I'm helping people in a profitable way. And that's what I stand by that. You as the listener, you're helping people in a profitable way. So don't hide behind that. Back to last session when we talked about it's not a crime to be in sales, right? And so, but for freedom, we don't have to be at Blue Collar the biggest and the shiniest object best practices group out there. We have to have the right mix of clients and coaches and team members and fulfillment on our team and the right culture in order to continue to play our 25-year game that we've got. And in 25 years, at the end of that, I'll be 75. We said it when I was 50. We'll be 75 and we'll regroup. And my guess is we'll set another 25-year plan.
You said something that triggered me. I'm going to go all the way back to our last Acceleration Days workshop, which is our membership workshop that we provide for our members. And we allow non-members to attend as guests as well. But I'll never forget, we had a plumber in Knoxville that stood up and said, 3 years ago when I joined Blue Collar as a $2 million business, a $10 million business, and he told the story of his growth, but he went on to talk about what his coach had helped him accomplish from a margin standpoint. He said, I'm not only the largest I've ever been, I'm the most profitable I've ever been.
That's where
and
it's
so
at.
Sacrificing, you don't have to sacrifice margins to grow top line. And so I'm going to give you two little quick strategies really quick that they're not sexy, but I'll never forget. I had an opportunity. I was talking to someone who worked under Alan O'Neill. For those that I love Alan, he's just such a damn good dude. And
Alan's just a great human. Yes.
yeah, he's just a good guy. And he said this was one of his teammates, and we were talking about this, and he said, because I was working with the president of that location. We were talking about this, and we had this quick conversation. He said, "You know what, Chris? That is exactly what Alan would say." And I said, "What is it Alan would say?" And he said, "Alan would always tell me, Tony, when the business isn't right, it's because something in the business isn't being done right on the basics." He was like, "So I want you to go back to the basics and figure out what we're not doing right." And he's like, "Chris, every time it was about the basics. It's not about sexy and flashy and big. It's just, we're not doing this or we're not doing this." So here's your 2 nuggets. Number 1, understanding your true cost to open the doors.
Yes.
And in many cases, not the true cost of not the actual cost to open the doors, but the actual cost to open a service business door. Because many of you that are listening, and I'm not coming at you, I'm coming from a place of love. You are building your business on scraps. You don't really have an office. You don't have a training room. You don't have CSRs, and you're trying to do it all yourself. And you're never going to get there until you understand the next thing I'm about to share with you. And that is making sure that you price your services for the business that you want to become, not for the business that you are today.
Boom.
You will never become something just because you want to. You've got to charge the appropriate price. If you're saying today, Chris, I can't afford CSRs, I can't afford dispatchers, I can't afford to have a training room. There's alternative ways to do this. But when you're calculating your billable hour and you're applying that methodology to your pricing of your services, then important, make sure that your task time is accurate. I don't care what price book program you bought. It's a general. And while it'll get you directionally correct, if you want to fine-tune profitability, make sure task time is correct for your market and that the appropriate materials have been accounted for with the appropriate markup. It's going to send you skyrocketing into profit. That'll be the first component. Second component, as a part of making sure that you understand what it costs to open the doors every day. And that's the number you go chase every single day. Get up and do it again tomorrow. Yes. You want intoxication, go chase that every day. Right?
Yeah, and that's the dopamine that you're looking for, because that means the margins are covered, that everything falls in place, and that's the key. And again, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming from a place of love because we've had a lot of pain and suffering, and we've experienced it individually ourselves, and we've experienced it alongside clients, and we just want to shorten that curve and accelerate the path. And that's what it's all about. And when we get too focused on top line and what so-and-so's doing, and it's not the same model as yours, or it's not that, just walk in your own 2 shoes, be who you are, and continue to learn and grow. And man, I hope you're having a good time on this podcast. I hope you're enjoying being with us, and make sure you like and subscribe and all those different types of things, depending on the platform, wherever you're at. Chris, you got anything else as we get everybody out of here today?
Yeah, just remember that there's more metrics to track than just revenue.
Yes, there it is.
And when I look at businesses, I'm just going to drop a few little nuggets here, if you would allow me, Kenny, to do that here today in this. And when I say allow me to do that, when I think about the business as it relates to making sure that everything is right, I look at what are the numbers at a certain size business that I can truly track and measure. And I'm going to drop some nuggets here, okay? I'm going to drop a couple nuggets and then I'm done. If you're a business that's between $250,000 a year and $750,000 a year, there's only so many things that you can track and do it effectively. Sure. Number 1, I want you to look at performance KPIs. I want you to look at your phone conversion, your field conversion, and your average ticket. Number of calls per day per technician. On the financial side, I want you to be looking at your revenue to budget, and budgets are not hard to build, by the way. We've got a tool here at the Blue Collar Success Group that is a revenue budgeting tool that the inputs, I could probably build you a budget in about an hour. Okay, super easy. The problem is most people make it complex. As the business evolves and gets better, now you want a more detailed budget. But as a smaller business, 250 to 750,000, you don't need a massive detailed budget. Yeah. So that means now you're also going to track gross margin, and you're also going to track your profitability. If you're a $750,000 company to $2 million company, you're going to track everything I just talked about. Plus, you also want to be looking at your lead generation. You want to be looking at your replacement close rate and your replacement average ticket. Couple of additional financial KPIs. You're going to want to make sure that you look at your, not just revenue to budget, but you're going to want to look at your material and equipment cost. You're going to want to look at your field labor, and then look at your total labor, not loaded, and still gross margin and profit. 2 million to 10 million, all that same stuff, add into it service agreement conversion percentage, service agreement renewal percentage. Now on the financial side, you're going to be looking at your buckets in your income statement. What's my marketing expense? What's my employee expense? What's my vehicle expense? What's my facility expense? What's my administration? Along with all the others that I shared with you at the smaller companies, 10 million plus. This is where you got to really get good, right? You're going to look at separating your leads, your marketed leads versus your technician leads. You're going to look at your close rate and average ticket by those a little different. In addition to that, you're going to be looking at the following. You ready? Accounts receivable. Large businesses need to be looking at accounts receivable because it's easy for things to get out of place when you're running a larger business and people owe you money and you don't even recognize it because you didn't get paid or some finance paperwork. I don't even want to tell the horror stories about that in my business.
No doubt.
Doing a quick ratio, understanding if you have the ability to pay the bills, and then also a debt to equity ratio and frequency and all those. So, here at the Blue Collar Success Group, we love to be able to help businesses. And so I'm going to leave the final one, Kenny. Just keep building and keep hustling. Just make sure that you don't let the grind wear you down.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. And my all those, like, there's a path for you that Chris just dropped, and check it out and probably in show notes. And just as you go through, continuing to decide where do you want to be, when, how, what are you willing to sacrifice. Every time you say yes to something, you say no to something else. Every time you say no to something, it gives you the ability to say yes to something else. So continue this, keep your mind right, keep your health right. Everything's okay. It's progress, not perfection. And next session, we're going to come back. We're going to dive deeper into margins. And now we've been talking marketing. We've been talking top line sales. Now let's get into some margins where it's really fun, because you make a few little minor adjustments and things just start dropping to the bottom line. And that gets really fun really fast.
Kind of like rain falling from the sky. So be on the lookout in the next episodes of the show. We're going to be talking about how to make it rain.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being with us. Like us, smash that subscribe, stay in touch. Until we talk, make it a better and fantastic week. Thanks for being here, Chris.
Thanks, Kenny.